Everyone, to this informational video about how the coronavirus is impacting the economy, the financial markets, and your money. Today's video is put on by myself, Travis Gatzemeier, and Maddi Napier of Minerva Wealth Planning. And we're just wanting to talk to you today about things that are out there moving the market and potentially impacting your finances. And I'm going to be talking about how to reduce your anxiety when it comes to money and investing, and a little bit about the markets and what you could expect going forward. And then Maddi's going to be speaking on how to have financial awareness and leave you with some actionable steps that you can navigate through not only today's shaky environment, but in the future as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. The biggest headline grabber out there today is obviously the coronavirus. And while we are still consumed with opinions and media and data out there, it's important to actually stick to the facts that are out there. And remember, we're not bringing you this information as health experts, but we want you to be aware of what facts are coming out as financial planners and keeping you updated with the correct information. Now, before we jump into this slide, according to the CDC, the coronavirus is believed to be spread through inhaling respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes, which is why we're seeing all the social distancing, things being suspended, restaurants being closed, social activities, things like that. So it's important to distance yourself from those events if you can, and obviously wash your hands. Now, as you can see in this graphic, which has active cases and closed cases, that of the active cases, 94% are still in mild condition and 6% are serious or critical condition. And this is information as of today, March 18th, 2020. Now, the closed cases is still 91% that have been recovered or discharged. And obviously deaths, unfortunately, are 9%, which if you look at the overall closed cases of this chart down here in your lower right, you'll see that it is fairly positive in that the recovered is going up and the closed or death cases are going down in percentage. So nonetheless, a little bit of positive information coming from the actual facts. The next thing is, should we actually fear this situation and what's going on out there? And as I've mentioned, this is something that is front and center in the world today. And the media outlets really like to drive fear because that's one thing that they can draw your attention to and get more people to read their articles and get on their websites. And you want to make sure you're informed, but you don't want to suffer from overload or opinions on certain topics. Consider what the source is and make sure you're looking at the actual facts. And the headlines add to short-term noise, and they can really start to increase your anxiety, especially around what to do with your money. And they also don't help you make informed decisions that can impact your long-term financial plan. And the uncertainty of how the coronavirus will play out is definitely a catalyst right now, causing financial markets to get choppy. But the thing about markets and investing is that they're never certain. Investing is built around uncertainty, and that's why you have the ability to earn a future return on your money. So when you're looking at these headlines and wondering what's going on, and you have a sense of fear or anxiety, it's okay to feel these emotions during times of market turmoil. So you're definitely not alone. And remember, you can only gather so much information when you're reading things like this. So if you find yourself glued to the news, the internet, social media, go outside, go for a walk, read a book, or change a channel. It's going to improve your day so much more. Now, speaking of uncertainty, as I said, will always be a part of investing. There's no environment that's absolutely certain. So if you look at this chart, look at all the negative events that have occurred over the years. And in the moment, these things feel like there's never going to be an end. Markets are going to keep going down. But over the long term, they just become events or history stories or even a good opportunity. And enduring these risks along the way, think of it as a price of admission to earning a future return on your money. You don't get to pick and choose the good returns or the bad returns. They're all mixed in together, the good and the bad returns. So it's important to focus on the things you can control, such as like your savings rate or your asset allocation. And then there's things you can't control, like the stock market or interest rate changes. These things will take care of themselves on their own over the long term. So should we expect a global slowdown? We can expect a global slowdown just due to what's going on right now. So you should probably have an expectation of what impact that could have on the economy, but it doesn't always have to be something that's feared. These can be some of the best opportunities if you're well prepared financially in these environments. So I want you to consider this chart where the gray areas are US recessions, and the charted line you see here is the total US stock market. And as you can see, we've had many recessions and the markets keep on trucking. And every recessionary period is different in length and has a different market performance. Now, what should we expect from the markets from here? Now, the markets obviously could go up or down. And if we expect the coronavirus to get worse, that's kind of what everyone is expecting as of right now. But that doesn't mean that the stock market's necessarily going to continue down. Financial markets are forward-looking, which means they price in these expectations. So if I expect it and you expect it and the world expects it, the market has already priced in these expectations. So it could go up or down from here. Things are built on speculation in the short term. So as soon as positive facts come out about the coronavirus or the economy, then the markets may recover. But if the impact of the economy is worse than expected, or we start learning negative information about the virus we didn't know, markets could price that new information in and go down from here. So remember, known information and expectations are already priced into financial markets. So we can leave the guessing games up to the speculators and play the long game, which I'll talk a little bit more here in a second about long-term investing. So we just briefly touched on a global slowdown, and I want to talk about a little bit about how the US stock market has performed during these recession periods. And as I mentioned, recessions aren't always the same. They're different in their own way, but we can look back on history and use that evidence to gain some understanding around the impact of the stock markets and recessions. And I want to bring to life some past data from recessions over the last 150 years. And if you look here, the markets average about a 0.9% return in the 6 months leading up to a recession. And then during recession, which is about 1 year and 5 months, let me go back there. And 1 year and 5 months is the average recession. So during that recessionary period, markets have performed about negative 2.9% on average. And then the 12 months after, you can see here, is 23.5% positive. You add all that up, which equals 2.9 years on average, this time frame here. 2.9 years before, during, and after recession equals 7.1%. So as you can see, every bear market, every recession, they're all going to look different. And they're all going to be extremely scary. You're going to have a lot of anxiety in the moment they're happening. But if we look back on the last recession, like in 2008, a lot of people compare that to what could happen in the future. And that's something called recency bias. And that makes us look back on something that recently occurred in the past, and we try to think that that same thing is going to happen today. And that recession was really bad. So that doesn't mean they're all going to be terribly bad. This information here is just something that you can use to kind of paint a picture on what you possibly could expect, and that all recessions aren't necessarily extremely bad like the last one. Now, as I mentioned, long-term investing earlier, we never know when a recession is going to actually start and stop. There's not going to be a headline one day that just says today the recession has ended. These things come out in past data or economic data that comes out after the fact. And they're kind of looked at or determined in hindsight where the recession actually started and ended. And as I mentioned earlier, markets price this information in before investors can catch up. And I want to talk about the power of long-term investing in that time in the market beats timing the market. So time is one of the biggest advantages you can have when it comes to investing. And that's something you never can go back and get more of. And just to throw this out there that past performance doesn't necessarily indicate future results, we can look back and kind of paint a picture on what to expect from the markets. And if you look at this chart here, you can see that over a one-day period, it's almost a 50-50 chance if we're going to see positive returns. Once you stretch it out to 10 years or so, you get up to a 93% chance, or 93% of the time, that markets give a positive return. And then once you get out to 20 years, there's never been a 20-year period that resulted in a negative total return. So the longer you stay in the markets, the higher likelihood of seeing positive returns. That's why I always want to say time is one of the biggest assets you have when it comes to investing. So the cycle of market emojis. Now, I mentioned that risk is the price of admission when it comes to emotions and biases, and understanding these emotions will get you through bumpy market environments. But you likely feel like one of these emojis somewhere on this chart. And if you do, you're not alone. Many people are entering a stage right now where they feel uncomfortable about their money, about the markets, and that's completely natural. So we want to help you navigate through this time and have an actionable plan so you don't make emotional decisions. So as you can see on this emoji chart, last summer, or when we're hitting all-time highs, there's kind of a sense of euphoria. We're making money, we're complacent, we don't necessarily worry about our portfolio because nothing's happening. We see news articles or analysts coming out and saying they see no recession in the next year or 2 years or whenever. And the thing about these events that come up, like the coronavirus that could impact the economy, is no one sees them coming. They just happen. So when things impact the economy like that, markets could follow. And finally, you enter a stage when markets fall too far, you enter a stage of maybe panic or anger. And while you're really worried in the moment, those are typically points of maximum financial opportunity, even though it doesn't seem like it. They're kind of times that we want to get out of the market completely or something like that. And it's important to keep your eyes on your long-term plan and not make major impacts to your portfolio that can negatively impact your long-term returns. So keep that in mind when you're investing, and understanding these emotions can help you get through these times and keep you kind of going in the right direction. So now Maddi's going to take over, and she's going to explain a little more on these emotions when it comes to your money. And then she's going to cover some next steps for you to take.
So now that we've given you some context and Travis has shown you that roller coaster of emotion, it's the perfect time to be thinking about our first step, which is acknowledgement. So this is about recognizing how you feel and reflecting on why you're feeling that way. And let me say, first and foremost, it is okay that you're feeling fear or that you aren't certain of what's going to happen and what you should be doing. It's natural in times like this that you do want to move. You do want to make a move or make a change because you're unhappy and anxious and all those emotions. So it's okay to feel that way, first of all. But what we're saying here is to understand why that is. So is that maybe because you're worried about losing your job, or your portfolio isn't what you thought it was? Really understand what you're trying to get to. What we want to avoid is something like this situation that we see so often, where we end up selling low and buying high, the opposite of our intention. And that happens whenever there are emotions at play. So know that it's okay to feel, but that you want to understand what those feelings are before you make any decisions and why you have them. The next step is looking at your liquidity. So review your financial plan and consider what's needed. So the standard we use for emergency savings is 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary or essential, necessary expenses. And so that may be different for every person. These types of decisions can be made depending on what type of job you have. What if you were to lose your job, would it be easy to get another job? So that's something to consider in terms of how much you should have socked away in an account. Also keep in mind with COVID-19, there are kids now that are staying at home through the end of the year. And so that's an additional expense of breakfast and lunch for your kids that you weren't planning for. So maybe you need something closer 6 to 9 months rather than 3 to 6 months. So know that can differ based on your own plan, and look at your plan to figure out which one makes sense, what you need. And then the last thing to think about here is if you did need additional cash, where would you get that from? Do you have CDs you could pull from? Do you have cash value you could borrow from on your life insurance policy? If you really absolutely had to get more cash out, kind of be thinking about where you'd get that from. And the nice thing here, I know this whole environment is not nice, but the nice thing here is this is a kind of a real-time stress test of your plan. This is the time to look at what's happening, right? Register what your feelings are, and then be able to know what changes you need to be making to ensure that your plan will work appropriately going forward. And then it's about revisiting long-term objectives. So, analyzing what a correction like this does to your overall financial plan and portfolio. How long do you have? Some things to consider here. How long do you have until you're going to be pulling from these investment accounts? How long of a time horizon do you have where you'll still be contributing actively to these accounts? And what returns do you need in order to make your financial plan work? Each of us have different objectives and needs, and so that requires different amounts of contributions and returns. And so it's important to understand what's happening to your portfolio and to your financial plan in this situation, and to talk to your financial planner about it, and make sure you feel comfortable. And this is most important. Everyone wants to stay the course. Don't make changes. We're not saying don't make changes. We're saying don't act emotionally and make some drastic change that could get you off the path to your successful financial plan. But if you do want to tweak something, that is possible as long as it's able to be tweaked and still allow you to meet the objectives of your financial plan. So talk to your financial planner, look at the overall situation and what's happening here, and keep in mind that you can make some small decisions. We're not taking those decisions away from you, but be cognizant of what's happening, and then make those decisions based on what you know. And then find opportunities. So this is about proactive financial planning based on the environment. So things like investing excess funds. If you have the emergency savings account ready to go and you're not worried about that, maybe you can put more money into your employer plan or to IRAs or Roth IRAs. Using the student loan, they've halted student loan interest on federal loans only, so make sure it's federal loan, but those dollars can be used elsewhere, like on the principal of the loan if you'd want, or living expenses. You get to decide kind of what happens with that interest. Take advantage of tax loss harvesting. So if you've had a period of time where we've had a lot of years of growth in the markets, maybe this is a perfect opportunity to be able to offset some of those capital gains by losing on the positions you have in your portfolio. And then refinancing student loans or mortgages. So interest rates are at an all-time low. And this is the perfect time to look at a lower interest rate or different terms, shorter term, depending on what your objectives are. And then finally, completing a Roth conversion. And many of you know that a Roth IRA, one of the benefits is you can take that money out completely tax-free as long as it's a qualified distribution. And so the advantage of kind of converting some money from a traditional IRA at this low market period to get into a Roth where you can grow unlimited and then potentially be able to take that out completely tax-free, those gains tax-free. And then lastly is to be thoughtful and empathetic. So know the facts and listen to experts, listen to the CDC on COVID-19. Don't listen to your neighbor on Facebook. Make sure that you're getting reputable sources to give you the information that you're absorbing. Support your friends, family, and community. One of the cool things that we've been seeing is that communities are coming together. People are babysitting for others. People are supporting local businesses that are hurt by this. Be a role model here. Look for ways that you can also do so. And then get creative and focus on the positives. Maybe you want to read a book you haven't read before that you wouldn't think to read, or learn a language or something like that. This is a perfect time when you're quarantined to take on these new skills that maybe you've been looking to do that. Here's the time and space. And keep in mind the positives. We are going to get through this. It's hard. We don't know when, we don't know how much it's going to impact us, but we will get through it. And so try to focus on the positives in times like this, if you can. And lastly, what's next? Well, we don't know. Certainly, Travis and I don't know what's next. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. And it feels like most of us have been living week by week, day by day, literally minute by minute to get updates on what's happening. And so we'll continue to hear what's happening and try to put great content out, accurate content out about what you can be doing, how you can be feeling about what's going on here. But most importantly of this entire presentation, just know that you are not alone. Everyone is feeling this. These are the hard times that we face when we have volatile markets, but it's, this happens every once in a while. So keep that in mind. You're not alone. Our information is located down here on the slide. So please take it down if you have questions or want to reach out to us. Don't hesitate, or comment, post anything that's helpful for you. We're here to help. So thanks so much for your time, and be looking forward to some more content we put out in the future.